and welcome. It's another Confessions podcast from your friends at Radio 2, and here's the proof. Yes, it's another jingle, festive time. This one called ID Christmas Pop.
88 and 91
Yeah.
BBC Radio 2.
Anyway, thanks... Oh, a little bit over the top towards the end. Anyway, thanks for all the confessions coming in. These are the ones that we broadcast this week. They got these pithy titles. Green light spells danger, Up on the Roof, Sometimes When We Hutch, and Car Wash. Here they all come. Father Simon and the Saints, I am making this humble confession and seeking your forgiveness for our antics in a case of an unidentified flying object. Yes, it's a UFO, boys and girls. I live in the lovely village of Lyddon in Kent, where Bobby Pryor used to live. In fact, she is the source of my... No, which is blessed to be nestled in the vale of the North Downs, with the beginning of the valley leading down to the town of Dover. From this natural vantage point, we have an unspoilt panorama view of the Downs and all that lives and moves on them. You with us so far there, Bobby? You like that, yeah? So to the night in question, which in fact was just over a fortnight ago when this email came in. On Sunday the 13th of November, I, my sister and brother were in the kitchen washing up after an early evening meal. It was around 4:30 in the afternoon and already the light of the day had nearly gone. There was just enough twilight to see the Lyddon Down from the kitchen window, and coupled with a full moon rising, the down view was beautifully lit. My brother Steve was at the open door when suddenly he shouts, "Blimey! Look at that!" That's how they talk.
You wouldn't get any expletives in Lyddon.
Of course not. I stood next to him in the doorway, and I saw what could only be described as a bright green or blue orb emitting light and moving across the down in a deliberate and slow manoeuvre. It looked as if it was hovering just above the ground, moving in a westward direction. At first I believed this to be a laser beam that you could see when army units would carry out practice exercises, but it was clear that the orb was not a laser beam, as it could be viewed moving between the trees on the down. Suddenly the orb moved down the hill at speed, and then in an instant it moved back up the hill to join the tree line once again. By this time my sister Jill had joined us and was witnessing this phenomena too. We all stood in silence watching the orb, tracking its route over the down before it disappeared from view. That evening I typed in a Google search, "Green light orb over Lyddon Down, 13th November." And to my utter amazement, I read of other local residents who had seen this same phenomena exactly 1 year earlier. They even mentioned a bright orange orb in the sky over Lyddon, which I too had witnessed a year before. Have you seen any of these things, Bobby Pryor?
No, definitely not.
Okay. I couldn't wait to tell all my Facebook friends what I had seen and vowed that I would be ready with my camera to film this green orb on the following night. I was sure that there would be further sightings from the research that I had conducted into the previous year's activity. That night, just as dusk was settling in, there I was in position with camera and binoculars, although I don't know quite what I expected to see through the binoculars because they didn't have night vision, but I was ready and I was poised. As the evening wore on, I kept looking for the orb, but it seemed as if there wouldn't be a sighting after all. Just when I was about to quit for the night, Steve ran down the stairs shouting, "The orb is back! The orb is back! Don't panic! The orb is back!" I went out into the garden and saw, he was right, the green orb moving just like the night before, only this time was moving eastwards and seemed to be pursued by someone with a torch. Obviously, the army had also seen the orb's activities and were trying to catch this alien orb to take it to the English equivalent of Area 51. I just couldn't bear the thought of the army intervening in order to stop the orb and keep it a secret from the public's consciousness. So I grabbed Jill and we sped out the house, travelling by car, plotting the movement of the orb and staying parallel to the Lyddon Down. We were ready for our own close encounter. We didn't give any thought to our personal safety or risk of being abducted. I felt like Mulder and Scully on a mission to find the truth. As we turned onto the road straight ahead of us, Jill and I could clearly see the orb coming over the brow of the hill. Now was our time for a close encounter. Excited and slightly apprehensive, we approached the place where the orb was making its way towards the road. Jill wound down her car window to confront the army guy following the orb. "Hey, you!" as we say in Lyddon. "What are you doing with that orb? Are you from the army?" There's a pause before the answer comes. Then, to my surprise, a female voice behind the torch says, Are you speaking to me? Yes, says Jill. Are you from the army? What are you doing with that green orb? Then, to our astonishment, she replied in a slow and deliberate manner, "It's my dog." Just then, a big black Labrador with a bright green fluorescent collar appeared in front of us, and I had to hide my high levels of embarrassment. Moments later, Jill and I were driving home in hysterics over the wild goose chase and our antics to track an alien orb which turned out to be a dog. Needless to say, Jill and I retreated back to the house via a route that meant we wouldn't cross the path of the woman with her alien dog again. Might have been an alien dog. Didn't know.
Could have been. Yeah, wasn't.
So, Father Simon, I'm asking for forgiveness for accusing the woman with her dog of being in the army and pursuing an alien. And for my neighbours, to whom I unwittingly involved them in the mystery of the green orb. Susan Knight from Lyddon. Just a couple of weeks ago, who knew that it was just a dog with a... Why would you put a luminous collar on your dog? I know, very good reason, so you can see it in the dark. Very good. I don't know how you can confuse that for a UFO, but from a distance, and if an ale has been taken, maybe. But obviously that hasn't happened in this case. What would you think, Sister Bobby?
The thing is, it's about perspective. I had a dog, and he had a white orb that you turned on so that he didn't go missing in the woods. And all you would see is this little white dot dancing around. So it's an easy mistake to make.
Did you ever confuse your dog for an alien being or a spaceship?
No, because I knew it, you see, and I knew the perspective. But I suppose if you saw it from a distance, you would just see this white light moving haphazardly around. And if you thought actually it was in the air and not obviously connected to four legs that were on the ground, you could be mistaken to think, what is that thing buzzing around above ground? It could be.
Do you think Susan might be a little simple?
No, don't. I just think it is. I can't believe you said that. No, I think she's absolutely... Listen,
Well,
Susan...
It has to be an option, doesn't it?
No!
It's a dog!
perspective.
How can you confuse a dog for a UFO?
Because it's dark and you can't see that. All you see is the light. Anyway, Susan, of course you're forgiven. You daft, funny woman. And good on you for going with it.
Brother
In
Matthew.
fact, it's actually worth getting some more dogs, or with things together, and basically setting up a big light show.
There's a fleet of them, all
Yes.
invading Lyddon.
Clearly. How big's this orb? I mean, how big is an orb that you put on a dog? Can't be that big. So why is it about that? It's about that big, right? So it's not that big. So it seems a bit odd.
It's the size of a house.
Yeah, clearly not. I know when I go running in the morning and it's dark, there are so some people have these things on the dog's collar which are flashing red lights. Which the first time you see, oh my goodness, what is that? Looks like the devil is on my running path.
Maybe it is.
But maybe it is. But it's not. It's a dog. So maybe the dogs are the problem here. So I am going to forgive because of this ridiculous use of lights that's confusing
What you're saying is,
simple
at
people.
least it wasn't the devil in Lyddon.
Yes, it wasn't the devil on my running path either.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Father Simon and the Guardians of the Moral High Ground. My story takes place in 1977 in pre-Thatcher West Midlands, when Cluffy was king, school milk was free, and political correctness and health and safety were for future generations. I had just left a boys-only grammar school after A-levels and had taken a temporary job whilst I was deciding what to do next, which I still haven't managed. There are a lot of people actually just, I don't know, I'm just doing this thing.
Fair enough.
The job was preparing housing estates to receive satellite TV stations, and as this was 1977 technology, it involved lugging huge rolls of heavy-duty cables around, uncoiling them, climbing ladders and feeding them behind drain pipes and wall fixtures before finally nailing them into asbestos-lined eaves, soffits, gutters and fascia boards. Different times.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was assigned to a team which comprised a transit van and two blokes. For the sake of anonymity, we'll call them Mickey and Griff, although ironically their real names were Tom and Jerry. So we'll call them Mickey. Okay. Mickey and Griff were two of the most work-shy and, let's say, attitudinally old-fashioned guys you were ever likely to meet. Bigots, basically. And when they found out that I was an ex-grammar school boy, I was immediately stereotyped and known as La-di-da Gunner Graham. From It Ain't Half Hot Mum, of course, and various other nicknames which I'm sure you can imagine. Each working day was the same. We would collect the van and equipment, find a roadside burger van, buy bacon and egg and sausage sandwiches and some foul stewed brown liquid masquerading as tea, and then squeeze back into the van. Mickey and Griff would then compare and discuss the pin-up of the day, and other than that and football, their only other topic of conversation was the foreman, who'd been threatening for days to come and see how we were progressing with the estate. It quickly became boring, and after a few days I started to ask for natural yoghurt.
Brilliant, yeah.
At the burger van. The clue, Dexter, is in the fact it's got a burger van. Anyway, it always got the same response from the guy serving. Do you want red or brown sauce with that? How Mickey and Griff roared. I also abstained from the page 3 girl discussions, and so I brought a book to read, To Kill a Mockingbird, actually, which generated its own bird-related puns. Oh, how the days flew by, Simon. And then one day there was a strong rumour that the foreman was going to come to our site, so we might have to do a bit of work today, says Griff. The job was further complicated on this day as I had to cross a main road with the cable. It had to be fixed on a chimney on one side of the road, spanned across the road for traffic to pass beneath, and then secured on a chimney on the other side. Sounds like a hairy job, this. The first part was easy, but there would be a period when the length of cable was hanging low across the road until it was secured on the second chimney. To facilitate this, one man, namely Mickey, was on the roof fixing the cable to the bracket, and Griff was halfway up the ladder with the coil of cable taking its weight. I was deemed too effeminate to perform either of these tasks, so they told me to watch the road and make sure no traffic came down the road until the cable was secure. Easy. They thought I was up for that.
Yeah.
What could go wrong? Mickey and Griff then disappeared round the back of the house and left me out of sight, leaning against a letterbox watching for traffic. And nothing came. I waited and watched, but it was a housing estate in the middle of the day and nothing came. So I got my book out and I continued reading. It's a really great book, by the way, described by a top critic as a right riveting read. You might like to know. Anyway, I was completely immersed in my book. That is no excuse, however, for what came next. If I didn't see it, I should at least have heard the 58 double-decker bus chugging down the street. Too late, it caught the cable, and the first I realised something was wrong was when I heard Mickey shout, "Drop the flipping cable!" to Griff. To my horror, I could see Mickey was pinned to the chimney. Meanwhile, the cable had snagged on the ladder and Griff was being propelled towards the ground at a rate of knots, still attached to the ladder. Just to compound things, the foreman's car was behind the bus. No one was hurt, but that's the key bit. Okay, no one was hurt, but Mickey and Griff were furious, to say the least. Funny that. Luckily for me, the foreman tore a strip off them for not coning off the road and putting me at risk. To cap it all, the bus driver came over and said in a black country accent, "Oi, mate, if you want to stop the buzz in future, just put your hand up. You ain't got to lasso it." How did I do?
Yeah.
You did it right.
Yeah. Really? Okay.
I was... Top reaction from the bus driver, though. I was put on another team after that, and Mickey and Griff were split up. However, I don't want forgiveness from them. I want forgiveness from the late Harper Lee, about whom Griff said, "Didn't he used to play for Shrewsbury Town?" for reading her magnificent book under such ridiculous circumstances. Anyway, there's Dexter. A little slice of black country humour there, brought to life, I think, under high-pressured circumstances. See, I think it probably added to it.
Yeah,
Don't you think?
That's certainly a theory, isn't it?
I could have read it in posh, if you'd rather.
Yeah.
Anyway, a slice of 1977 West Midland action. What do you say there, Sister Bobby?
What a great story. Of course, different times. Whether I can forgive you, I love the Laurel and Hardy moments, I have to say. I'd like to work with Mickey and Griff.
I don't think you would.
No, I would. I think a day with them would be brilliant. Also, you're up for a bit of hard work, so well done. However, you were in charge of a very, very important situation, and you shouldn't have been distracted by your book, no matter how good it was. So I think, given the fact that you were meant to be in charge and on lookout, that you did actually fail to do your job you've been paid for. You're not forgiven.
Not forgiven.
But I do love the bus driver's response.
It's quite a good excuse. Ask Harper Lee. I'm sorry I didn't do that. I was reading To Kill a Mockingbird. Anyway, what do you say there, brother?
We are firmly in 1970s sitcom land here,
Yes.
aren't we? Yes. This is the kind of thing that they would have got away with then, that you, for very good reason, we don't have now because we have health and safety and people being dragged down from chimney breasts. I absolutely love this. Very, very funny. But the problem is, as Bobby quite rightly says, you had a job, mate. You had a job to do, and that was to look out for traffic. But no, you wanted to read your book, and that feels a little ostentatious to me. Oh, look at me, I'm reading a book. I'm asking for yoghurt at the burger van. Oh, get me. So I am not going to forgive, because frankly, I think it was all a bit for show.
Dear Father Simon, top team, my confession dates back to the late 1970s at primary school in Bolton. As a 7-year-old boy, I was into most things a 7-year-old boy of the late 70s was into, with my favourite being the hit series of the time, Starsky and Hutch. We would both act out scenes from the show in the school playground, and this particular year I was delighted to receive a Starsky and Hutch action figure playset from Santa for Christmas. The playset included figures of both Starsky and Hutch. Hang on, let's just see if we can get some flavour in. Starsky and Hutch, as well as Huggy Bear, and the pièce de résistance, a shiny Ford Gran Torino, complete with white swooshes down the side. Look at that. Can do the walk. I was delighted with my gift. I couldn't wait to get back to school to show it off during one of our playtime reenactments. There you go, you were there just for a moment, back in the 70s. The first day of term duly arrived, and I decided that I would just take the shiny Torino to school, as I'd started an episode on my bedroom carpet, and that very morning before school didn't want to disturb the position of the said characters, thus enabling me to bring this thrilling episode to a conclusion at home time. My school backpack had been packed the night before, and all I had to do was to put the Torino in my bag just before leaving the house. Okay? All following
Yes.
it? Right, cool. With all the morning rituals complete, I toddled off to school, eagerly anticipating playtime and the unveiling of my newest toy. After what seemed like an eternity, the sounding of the school bell heralded the arrival of morning playtime. Unfortunately, I was just completing a particularly tricky section of my papier-mâché Tyrannosaurus Rex, so I told my bestest friend in the world, Nathan, that he should start today's reenactment and I would join him forthwith. We had a great time playing with the new model vehicle, and when playtime was over, I asked Nathan to return my Torino so I could ensure its safety in my backpack in the cloakroom. However, to my horror, Nathan, my bestest friend in all the world, wouldn't return it, claiming it was his, and that he was going to take it home. Well, I checked my backpack. The Torino definitely wasn't there. It was mine, and we spent all the dinner, lunch for listeners south of Llandudno, and afternoon break times arguing over it, but Nathan was steadfast and wouldn't return my newly acquired Ford Gran Torino. At this point, I should have approached the teacher and reported the theft and the perpetrator of this heinous crime. However, I didn't think this was a very Starsky and Hutch thing to do. In not one episode had I encountered the crime-fighting duo running to tell teacher. And as plugging Nathan with Hutch's customary 9mm Smith & Wesson was also out of the question for obvious reasons, I needed to come up with another plan. Luckily, as a trusted member of 4B, I had been elected as one of the class's milk monitors. Thank you. Need the apostrophe in the right place. A highly sought-after position within 4B, and I was on the roster of that day's milk distribution. It was my role to ensure each tiny bottle of milk was allocated a straw and delivered to the desks of my classmates before the end of that afternoon's story, which was currently being enthusiastically told to the children sat on the carpet in Story Corner. I completed this task with my usual efficiency, pausing only briefly at Nathan's desk drawer, covertly removing the Gran Torino and repatriating it to its rightful owner, concealing it in the pocket of my rather garish, bright purple corduroy trousers. That's some uniform. The teacher finished the story, and our milk was consumed just in time to hear the bell for the end of the school day. I didn't need to be told twice. I tore out of the classroom, trouser pocket bulging, grabbing my coat and backpack as I shoulder-barged fellow classmates in my haste to depart school, rushing rushing my mother to get us home. I raced up the stairs, dropping my coat and backpack on the living room floor en route. Upon opening my bedroom door, I could see the scene exactly as I'd left it. The bank robber, a.k.a. my brother's Steve Austin action figure, was just about to escape the scene of the heist on the back of Evel Knievel's wind-up motorbike, with Hutch giving chase and Starsky and Hutch taking aim from behind my Ford Gran Torino, complete with white swooshes down the side. Yeah. At this point, having taken a bit of time to conclude this thrilling episode, which resulted in Steve Austin being jailed until tea time, I decided to do what any self-respecting fictional detective of the 70s would do. I decided to fit Nathan up. So upon returning to school the next day, while the class was busy hanging up coats and preparing for the day ahead, I surreptitiously wandered to Story Corner and slipped the car between the cushions laid on the floor, before arriving at my desk to begin the dreaded Friday morning spelling test. Apart from Nathan spending the day with a face like a bulldog sucking a lemon, his mother had not been best pleased with his news of the missing vehicle, and the day passed without further incident. Story time arrived, and after a couple of minutes, Mrs. Evans interrupted the story to ask Charlotte Hughes why she was finding it so difficult to sit still. When Charlotte replied, The cushion is lumpy. I was listening earlier. Mrs. Evans lifted said cushion to discover a shiny Ford Gran Torino, complete with swooshes down the side. Yeah, one of those. Now, it's my understanding from listening to other confessions that at this point I should beg for forgiveness for my actions, and a vote is taken as to whether or not my sins are forgiven and my soul is cleansed. Whilst I intend to adhere to this procedure, I would like it understood that my sincerest apologies do not go to Nathan. Quite frankly, as I discovered he'd been seeing my long-term girlfriend, because 10 days is a long-term relationship when you're 7, behind my back, and had even given her his last Rolo, which in those days constituted a marriage proposal, he deserved everything he got. However, I would like to ask forgiveness from the rest of 4B for the term-long ban for children bringing in any of their personal possessions to class, as we quite obviously couldn't be trusted to look after them properly. For that, I'm asking for forgiveness, but for nothing else, let me make that very clear. Midge, with a tale from the late 70s, a little bit of Starsky and Hutch action. It's a kind of a variation on a well-known story. I like it very much indeed. Sister Bobby, what you got?
Well, on behalf of the children that got banned from taking a little bit of home with them, you're not forgiven. Because, everyone needs a little bit of home with you, something you love, something to say, this is me. But the thing is, you're right. Nathan, he cheated. He basically took your woman. And that is unforgivable.
That's right.
You had every
More of a
right to
girl,
take his car. So you're not forgiven.
Not forgiven?
Nope.
Okay, all right. Brother Matthew.
I'm somewhat conflicted on this, because I think you should basically, if you take your favourite toy into school, hostage to fortune, it can all go wrong. You may lose it, and if you decide to take it into school, then that's the risk you're gonna run. But I do love this story because of the sort of 70s references. Yeah. What's the word on the street, Shaggy? And also giving the last Rolo as well. What's wrong with that? Nothing at all. So I am going to forgive just because of the 70s.
All right, because of the 70s. Father Simon and the all-seeing, always forgiving collective. Watching the recent track cycling on the TV, we're marking the December the 1st by having a summer holiday themed confession, which seems to work. Saw the track cycling on the TV. It brought to the surface a recurring nightmare of a dirty episode in my past, which I must now unburden myself. This holiday episode dates back to the summer of 2013, when the Tour de France started on the French island of Corsica. Now, Corsica is a great favourite of ours, and taking our camper van there for a 2-week trip for many years. But in 2013, we didn't have enough money, we didn't have enough leave, so we decided to go for 1 week only, and we were going to fly. Everything was great. Lots of beach time, lots of pretending to read books whilst actually sleeping on the beach, great food, great scenery, and we even watched a bit of stage 1 of Le Tour. Generally, it was a perfect trip. Sadly, the holiday was over too quickly, and we were on the eve of our last day. We paid our hotel bill, and the proprietor gave us a warning. What's the Corsican accent? Is it just vaguely French?
It's French. No, definitely have a stab, because I don't think you can go wrong.
Harsh French. It's
Don't forget.
like that, like Provence.
Hey, English types.
Oh, that's it.
Don't forget to wash your hire car before returning it to the airport. Otherwise, you will be hit with a service charge. There's a hint of Germany there.
Yes.
That went very German towards the end. Yeah.
Anyway, the essence of it was they had to wash their hire car before handing it back, otherwise they get a service charge. What? We say wash a rental car? Surely that's what you pay the exorbitant rental fee for in the first place. But the boss said wash the car, so the decision was made. Everything would be fine, Christine said. We have an evening flight, so we can go to our favourite beach at Polombagia for the day, then shower off in the public showers in the port of Porto Vecchio, and then wash the car at the petrol station on the outskirts of the town before heading to the airport at Figari. Everything will be fine. It's very Italian now. Planned down to the last detail. What could possibly go wrong? Well, a fantastic last day was had, and all too soon it was time to leave the beach. Back to the port we drove, and we went into the office. Excusez-moi, I say. De billet pour le douche, s'il vous plaît. I blurted out in my best Officer Crabtree voice. A stream of machine gun French came back at us with lots of shrugs and mild expletives, but I did recognise la douche est kaput, which sounds a little bit German, but you get the idea. The shower was broken. What were we to do? We had to shower. We were covered in sunscreen and salt water and sand, smelling more of eau de toilet than eau de cologne. No way we can go home without showering. Let's get to the car wash, Christine says. I have a plan in mind. That's Matt's dirty voice, by the way. French car washes, you might know, tend to be manual affairs with a couple of pistolets on the end of a hose and a very powerful water jet erupting out of said pistolet. Water and detergent all in together. Much better than the UK ones, as it happens.
I love that. Yes, that's how I do my car.
Is that right?
Yeah, love them.
What, you go to a French
I go
one?
to France. No, they have them over here as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
The cruel reality of what was about to unfold suddenly hit me. Out came the shampoo bottle and Christine stripped down to her swimming costume. Let's wash the car then, she says. Just give me a squirt of the car wash jet, please, first. Come on, she says to me, get your kit off. So we showered off in the car wash whilst cleaning the car. We alternated. Squirt the car, squirt the girl. Squirt the car, squirt the boy. You should try it, Simon. It saves money. What do you think? Do you think that would go down well?
Likes the idea of it, doesn't it?
At this point, I should say the car wash cleaner is definitely not designed for the human body, but it did get us clean. However, here's the thing, and listen up. I don't beg forgiveness from the petrol station attendants who clearly decided whatever was going down with the couple all lathered up in the car wash was better left unchallenged. And I don't beg forgiveness from the young couples who seemed rather too keen to join us, and they were rewarded with a squirt of the hose to keep them all at bay. What did they think was going on? I don't know. Foreign ways. But I do beg forgiveness from those unfortunate souls sat next to us on the plane flight back to Paris and onto our local airport. Car wash water, you might know, is a bit like bore water in Australia. It smells something awful. We were clean, but we were disgustingly smelly. People were leaning away from us and we had our own circle of isolation wherever we walked. Whispers about those smelly egg English seemed to be the general topic of conversation. There was something of a sprint when it came to deplane at UK Customs. Anyway, that's it. I feel better for unburdening myself, and I place my trust in the forgiving threesome. Thank you, Richard and Christine. Well, I suppose they were trying to be inventive and creative, and they were making the most of a bad situation. However, that was creating quite a stir, I think, at this little car wash, where you're not supposed to do that kind of thing. Bobby Pryor.
Well, the thing is to be careful with the jet wash, because actually they are really, really, really strong jets. They're not like it's not like your hose, is it, with a limp spray on the end that is quite safe. So you've got to be careful, because you could lose your trunks. It could have been disastrous. You know, you could have been sprayed off you and other things.
I think that's what those other couples were kind of anticipating.
Okay.
But they were fended off like a zombie attack. Go away.
Well,
You
it's
don't do that
you
kind
know,
of
it's
thing.
inventive. You did 2 jobs in one. You saved money, and it really looks like actually that you were the sufferers.
Did you know that car wash water stinks?
Well, I think it depends on the source. I think generally the point is it's not drinking water. So maybe it shouldn't be going in your eyes, in your mouth, and up your nose and down your ears, because you never know what's in there.
And everywhere
But
else.
I think actually you can be.
As it turned out.
I wasn't thinking of those places, but yeah, you are forgiven.
What do you think, Novice?
Yeah, I've been highlighting a few points here. Well, that's like DIY cheap exfoliation, isn't it? By that, having those. So that's another thing. And also, I've never washed a rental car in my life, so to take it back, I think that seems far too...
That is the whole point. You just drop it off.
Of course
That's
you
what
do.
you pay
And they were doing it at night, and no one would see it anyway. And I like seawater on my skin. I love the salty seawater on my skin, and it's one of the things I like to retain when I go on a plane. So, and clean but smelly water. That's just odd. So there you go.
Richard and Chris not clean, basically.
Yes,
doesn't it?
yeah, absolutely. Richard and Christina, absolutely, on this occasion, not forgiven.
Clearly on that form, you know that endless form for car hire that you get. Do you want this kind of insurance, that kind of insurance? Do you want a thing?
Extra.
Sign here, sign here, sign here. They clearly signed a thing saying they were actually going to have to clean it when they send it back.
Yes. I'm prepared to leave a full tank of petrol, but I'm not going to clean it as well. Would it be easier if I just didn't drive the car? Would that make you happy? And then I'll just give you all my money. Anyway, I was with them when it went to, as far as the jet wash is concerned, because I'm a big fan of the jet wash, but
with the pistolet,
but it strikes me this is a couple that were a little bit too desperate to get down with their bad selves. Yeah, I think they were a little bit too. Oh, look at us! Oh, we're so continental. So I'm inherently suspicious of these kind of people. So I am.
I bet
not
they wear
gonna
berets as well.
Yeah,
you know,
they do. Yeah. Oh, I'm so crazy, and I'm not wearing any socks with my shoes. So I am not going to forgive.
Well, they were this week's confessions. What did you think? You just want another jingle? All right. Next time you hear that, you can think, that was a traditional shotgun sting lasting 11 seconds. And you'd be right. Anyway, if you've got your own confession, send it to confessions@bbc.co.uk. You've got a whole pile of festive confessions on the way. More in a week, and don't forget you can listen to all our shows from the last 30 days on your iPlayer, including on Monday, when we welcomed a promising young author called Graham Norton to the Radio 2 Book Club to discuss his first novel, which is called Holding. Tuesday was a Tuesday 80s special, of course. We played long songs from Grace Jones, Simple Minds, Grandmaster Flash and Melly Mel, although he turned out to be just Melly Mel with nothing at all from Grandmaster Flash, and Guns N' Roses. Steve Pemberton joined us on Wednesday between performances of the play Dead Funny, which is currently in London's West End. And on Thursday, Nige prepared spiced rib beef with Brussels sprout puree, our first festive foodie Thursday of the year. And if you've got this far, and you're quite happy to tweet me something just to prove it, how about, well, one of the themes this week has been people who can't hear anything that we're saying. So if you could just tweet, is that you? That would be nice. Yeah. Thanks for listening.